and he says, I've got an idea. I feel like what we're both trying to do, we should merge the ideas, make it business networking in general for business leaders, and do it UK wide. And that could really be a thing because nobody was really doing that kind of thing.
Welcome to the Refuel and Reboot podcast, where each episode is normally about cycling or business and technology, and on the rare occasions combines the two. I'm Mark Gilmore, host of the podcast, and on this episode, it is one of those occasions where we combine both cycling and business as I speak to Dominic Rowing-Parker, owner and founder of Tullio, the Business Community for Cyclists. As you will hear in the interview, I have been involved in Tullio since its inception and seen the evolution of the concept and the model over the last 5 years. 2025 was a pivotal year for Tullio, and Dominic talks through some of the headwinds and challenges that prompted him to develop the model further and pivot to a slightly different strategy. We talk through some of the challenges of the events business and networking in general, and how Tullio has altered some of those dynamics to make networking more natural and ultimately successful. For those interested in finding out more about Tullio or joining one of the monthly local rides across the country, I will put details in the show notes of how to do so. Or you can look Tullio up on LinkedIn or at Tullio, that's Tullio.cc online. So here's Dominic and Tullio.cc. Dom, really good to see you. Thanks for joining today. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thanks, Mark. Good to see you. I'm Dominic Rowing-Parker, and I'm from Tullio.cc, which is the business community for cyclists in the UK.
So, Dom, I got you onto the podcast because we've been talking about this for a little while. We've been involved together in Tullio. I think you reached out to me right at the very beginning, and I've been a member since pretty much almost day one, I think. So you tell us about this. Is really interesting how it's all come about. So tell us about how the idea came about, and how it all started really, and what it is.
So just quickly on your point before, I think you were actually either our very first member or member number 2. I think it was 1, but it's either 1 or 2, so you were definitely with us from the start. So Tullio, as I said, it's the business community for cyclists in the UK, but it's also business and networking events on the bike, and it's a cycling club for those business leaders, senior professionals that come along. So we're open to people that are in essentially a senior or leadership position, whether that's kind of management and above in a company, you own your own company, or you're perhaps in one of the senior professions like a solicitor, architect, doctor, that kind of thing. So how it came about, I won't go too far back, but I was doing something called Velo IT before. So my career role is in IT, and it got to a stage where I was wanting to meet more people out in the real world because the job was very, sat at a desk on the phone, that sort of thing. So I created a group on LinkedIn at first, and it ended up, it's still there, but it's dormant really. I think it's got about 550 people in it, called Velo IT. And it was a bit of a networking group for cyclists that were in IT. So I kind of started posting content all the time about cycling, got a bit of a following, added people to the group, and I'd post like news and features and all that sort of stuff. And then we did a couple of like events, but they were more just kind of meet up and ride sort of thing. So we did an event at the Tour of Britain in Pershore, where we did a ride, and then went to watch the race. So it was through that I met a guy called Martin. You remember Martin well from the start. So he was, when I met him, he was at British Cycling, but then he moved to a big consultancy called Slalom, where he was trying to put on like a corporate cycling event for the consultancy. I was doing my business networking for IT people, and then COVID hit. So we all went into lockdown, and it was in that first sort of 3-month lockdown period, I think, where I randomly got a call from Martin one day, and he says, I've got an idea. I feel like what we're both trying to do, we should merge the ideas, make it business networking in general for business leaders and do it UK wide, and that could really be a thing because nobody was really doing that kind of thing before. There's a couple of people in the market that are maybe specific to certain areas or certain market sectors, but no one was really doing it sort of UK wide. So when the first lockdown finished and we were allowed back out again, we did a pilot event up in the Peak District. We managed to get a whole 12 people there. But again, it was an event, but it was just meet here, we'll get everyone a coffee and we'll go for a ride sort of thing. So we'd not founded a company or anything like that at this stage. It was just getting people together on the bike. So we went off and did quite a challenging route in the peaks. It was about 105k, something like that. Went really well, followed up with everybody after, sent everybody a Tullio face mask as like a thank you. Planned another one in Bristol, which was a couple of months later, which was in another, we went into lockdown again and then it came back out of it, did another one. And yeah, that went quite well as well. I think we had about the same amount of people. And it was the next year in 2021 that we properly, we understood what we were doing, what we needed to do. Founded it as a limited company because, to keep it going, it needs to sort of generate some money to put back in. And we needed to get the relevant insurances and stuff like that. So we're leading rides, people are buying tickets. We need to have some sort of legitimate cover there. So it was at that point that we started doing probably 5 events per year, which is probably where I met you for the first time. And we do one Cheshire, Peak District, Cotswolds, Surrey, Bristol, Chilterns. They were kind of all over the place, but there's only one per month. And 5 or 6 in a year. So yeah, that was great. And we kind of we had a membership offering then, as I said, which you were one of the first, but it just meant that rather than getting a ticket for all of those events, you got all the tickets included for as part of the cost for the year, and then you got discount on the kit and some other sort of brand partner discounts. So we didn't really have many paid members, but there was some sort of reason to join up basically, and then anybody sitting on the outside that just wanted to come to an event, didn't want to be a member, then they could just get a full price ticket basically. So yeah, that was kind of how it came about until I guess we'll move on to talk about how it flipped last year. But we could also talk about the benefits of why cycling and networking is so good, but that's essentially how it came to be.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's capture that that idea of networking on a bike. It can seem a little crazy, but then actually when you think about it, business decisions and deals have been struck over the golf course for many years. So
yeah.
It's essentially just the same sort of principle, but in a different medium. So let's touch on that, and then we'll come back to how Tullio has evolved, and particularly last year being quite an impactful year for the brand, for the events business, and for the whole networking community. But let's capture a little bit about that, that why it works and or how it works and why it works. What insight have you gained from that over the last kind of 5 years of this?
Cycling just appears to be unique, and you only know if you're a cyclist. So if you go back to the golf reference, that tends to be how I describe it to people that aren't in cycling. So I say, it's a business networking company on the bike. So it's like a corporate golf day, but we cycle instead. And people have been calling it the new golf for a number of years, and it's still not fully got to that space where people see it as a useful business or business development tool. So if anybody says, oh, there's a corporate golf day, who wants to go? Everybody puts their hand up. No one bats an eyelid. It's a paid day. You don't have to take a day off, this, that, and the other. But with cycling, we get plenty of people that do come and they pay through their business or expense it through their business. But there's a lot of people that have invested themselves or have to take a day off to come. And that is because people just don't see it the same way as golf yet, despite the fact that I think it's a lot better, because with a golf day, you usually go in your team of 4 with people that you work with or that anyway. You kind of score yourself, you go around, you don't really get to speak to people. Whereas with cycling, the first good point about it is you get to meet so many other people at the start. at the cafe stop, at the end, and then on the road we kind of rotate every sort of 5-10 minutes, so you're constantly speaking to somebody else. The second part of it is going back to that unique angle, is we just get on straight away. So cycling breaks the ice. So you turn up, if you're the first person there and somebody else arrives, it's like, oh, hi there. Yeah, nice bike. Where have you come from? I always joke saying, oh, what's your FTP? That sort of stuff. And there's no like awkwardness. Oh, so what's your name then? What do you do? This, that, and the other. So it's just like your mates already. You've got something to talk about. You turn up and then you're off. And the second part of that is the kind of stories, teamwork and camaraderie that you then form out on the road. So we're not just riding together, but we're looking out for each other. That might be, sharing turns on the front, looking after the people behind. Is there somebody that's struggling off the back or, struggling to get up a hill? Someone will drop back and help them and communicate up to the group that we need to slow down. Someone might get a puncture, and then, a couple of people will stop or the whole group will stop and, sort of change it together. And that just creates that extra bond that I don't think that you get with anything else. So yeah, it's just unique for networking, I think, in that I say that you make friends first. So you turn up and you make friends, cycling friends. You might not be able to do business with any of them, or there might not be any immediate business, but if and when there is business to be had, people are going to want to work with you because you're a friend and they trust you because you share that kind of ethos of a cyclist. So that's why I think it works so well.
You're absolutely right there, because it breaks down barriers, like you say, and there is something about sharing an experience together. That sharing an experience, whether that's on the bike or in a networking event or something like that, having a shared experience then builds a relationship, and that. And, we know that business is done through relationships, and certainly where you can get to a position of trust a little quicker, that really helps. It's good to know who you're buying services off or who you're selling services to. And I think you're right in that the having the bike and that experience in happening together does kind of break down those walls quite quickly. In that, so it does accelerate that process.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
And I know I've found that myself, actually, having been a member, since the early days. I had found that my networking relationships were very much centered around my own industry. I come from the telecoms world, and so actually joining Tullio and going out on the rides with people from different industries or different vocations has been really interesting for me, because it's broadened my horizons and broadened my contact database, for things such as, legal, solicitors or employment law, for example. I think of Pete on that, and human resources and those sorts of things. And all sorts of different products. I remember doing that introductory thing that you just mentioned on one of the Tullio Mallorca trips. And on that first ride out, where we went out just to test bikes and get acclimatized to sunny weather. Although on the day that we are recording this in the UK, we are experiencing our hottest day of the year so far in 2026. The rain has finally stopped, but we were sat in a cafe. Somebody was sat across from me, asked that question. You talked about bikes, talked about that, but then it naturally went round to, what do you do? And that opened up a very interesting set of conversations for me in lots of different things that have now come about, and different opportunities, which I would never have come across had it not been in the Tullio space. That's what I find most interesting for me, is actually finding people from outside of my own industry, and the linkage there that works across. You must find it really fascinating. You've come from the recruitment world, and seeing this now broad spectrum of people that join Tullio. We've got all sorts of people in the club now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that what I find as well is some people like time where they're networking with all different sorts of people for the reasons that you've said. Certainly, it depends on what your business is. If you're an accountant or if you provide business insurance or something like that, anybody in our network could be a customer, if you like. Whereas
Yeah.
if you worked in construction and you're a house builder, I guess in certain industries, you probably mainly want to network with people from your own sector. So there will be a time where we'll start doing stuff that are both. There'll be events that are kind of secular for a
Mm.
certain industry or sort of geographical location. Then there's the stuff that's open to everybody because, yeah, I think there's space for both. But it's amazing to see people from uh, all over the country traveling up and down the country just to come to events and with all sorts of different people. So if you looked at the delegate list at the big business bike ride that we did last year with the bike numbers that went with it, so you could look in advance who you wanted to speak to. There were people from all different kind of sectors, and that's only gaining traction because one of the only pushbacks that we've ever had is people like to know, is there anybody else from my sector as part of Tullio?
Mm.
And sometimes that was, well, no, actually, but if you join, you'll be the first. And now there are people from most of the sectors. It's actually, we can go back and go, yeah, we have got a growing number of people in that area. So there really is something for everybody, I think.
You mentioned there the big business bike ride that you did last year in the Cotswolds. That was a new format
Yeah,
and kind of culminated in a 2025 season that was quite different for Tullio. You mentioned that in those early years you had the format of the regional ride or the big rides, 5 or 6 a year. Explain what happened last year in 2025 and now what the model looks like today, for because I'm sure there'll be people listening to this who'll go, oh, this is interesting. What does it entail? So what happened last year, and then talk us through how that's kind of fed into this year.
yeah. So if we go back probably about 18 months from last March, you may know yourself, we went through a bit of a tough period. So our events that we talked about before got to a stage where we were attracting, they're quite small and bespoke, where, you get to know everybody on the day. So there were, 20, 25, 30, especially in the good locations. And we were getting that consistently. And then we hit an 18-month period where we really struggled to get people actually on the events. And I wasn't afraid to kind of tell people that and admit that. We still had the odd event like the Chilterns and Surrey, which did well anyway. But others, we kind of ran it as a smaller group, or
And
some we actually cancelled.
that interesting. I remember a conversation we had. It kind of coincided with also a general lull in the business networking environment and or in events in general. It was a difficult year for events,
Yeah,
for
well, I think it
events
was a
management
difficult year
companies.
for everybody because it basically coincided with a downturn in the market. So we had that 2 year period after COVID first hit where it just went bonkers, where people were buying services left, right, and centre, allowing people to work from home, competing for staff, that sort of thing. So in my other, my career role, we had a really good couple of years, and then the market just suddenly, took a dive and a big reset. So what we found as a knock-on effect of that, doing both cycling and networking events, is people either couldn't justify the time out of the office to come to an event like this, or they're actually out of work themselves, spending all of their time, looking for new jobs, whether that's applying online or interviewing, that kind of thing. So yeah, we really struggled to get people for a while. And it was still sort of worth doing because, we were kind of still seem to be reaching more people in general, and doing more online, but it just kind of not as many people as would have liked were coming to the events. So it got to the stage, I think it was March last year. I thought, this is great. We do an event, people come, there's a buzz on the day, there's a buzz after on LinkedIn when I post about it, and people connect. But then it's like nothing happens for another month. And if somebody sees the event, that's perhaps local to where it was, oh, hi, I see you did an event in the Chilterns, would love to come along. When's the next one? Well, actually, it's next year now because, we only visit each place once. So we actually came up with the idea of taking Tullio local. So what that means is if we created a ride that was once a month in all different regions around the UK, then people could come together much more regularly and kind of ride with people locally, because often you want to network locally rather than, you might not have a need to meet somebody from the other side of the country, but in other industries you might. So that was when we came up with the idea of having ride captains, which you were obviously a ride captain for the New Forest, which would take on that responsibility to run just a short 2-hour ride once per month, much more accessible, where there's a bit of coffee and networking at the start, but people aren't having to take a full day out of the office to get there and to do this ride. And we kind of kept them consistent on the same date as well, so you knew where they were, when they were. And yeah, the idea was to kind of just have much more going on all the time, as well as our bigger events. So to go with this, completely flip the membership model into, it is now, before it was business and networking events, but now it is the business community for cyclists. So with that, we obviously offer free monthly rides there's 18 regions now, but we started with I think 7 last year. So you get all of those included.
Did you say 18?
18, yeah, we've got already
My
for this
goodness.
spring.
Yeah, that's
so
amazing.
We've gone from 7, I think, to 18, and I'm talking to a couple more people about other locations as well. So by being a member now, you get access to all of those rides for free through the Spond app at the moment. You get access to private WhatsApp community. So there's a group for every different area in there. There's a general chat. There's a group for bike maintenance, pro cycling, you name it. There's something in there to kind of tune into. One of the most powerful tools, we've got a business directory. It's actually on LinkedIn at the moment, but it's private, it's searchable, and it's filterable. So even though you're based down in the New Forest, you can search for and connect with members across the UK that might be relevant for your industry. And when you pop up in their chat on LinkedIn, it's the most warming ever, because hi, I'm Mark, I'm in Tullio, see you're in Tullio, we're both cyclists. So that's a great thing. They get discount on the kit, which you can see up there. There's a new black design we've got for last year. And there's about 500 discounts that we've got through our rewards hub. So that's cycling stuff, sportswear, activewear, some leisure stuff like tickets for Legoland and Alton Towers and that kind of stuff. So for 40 quid a year, which is our baseline membership, that's the same price as a cheap cycling club, and you're getting access to all those benefits. But then that added value of this is business and networking in a unique form, and there's so many ways that you could actually make that 40 quid back in a very short space of time. So I think that there's an incredible amount of value in that model, and it definitely seems to have hit differently, because this time last year, or sort of April time last year, we had 20 paid members, or it might have been 22, 23, something like that, and now we've just gone over 200. So we're fast becoming something that could become the biggest cycling club in the UK. So our projections are to almost hit 500 by the end of this year, 1,300 next year, and about 4,000 the year after. So I'm hoping that we can actually see that growth come to life.
It's fantastic. That's a really, really, really good evolution of that initial concept and initial idea, and how it moved in. And last year was a great success. Like you say, we had the regional rides, and like you say, I look after the New Forest one, which is based out. We go out of Lyndhurst, but events all around the country now, and with 18 this year, there's bound to be a Tullio monthly ride fairly local to where people are. But then you also have like the bigger events, like the big business ride that took place last year, which was a superb event. And again, it was a really interesting one for me. Got a very, very interesting business contact, which we're now kind of exploring some ideas of as a result of just riding alongside and chatting.
Yeah.
So you've got a couple of those planned as well this year?
So that the big business bike ride, again, it was just a bigger version of the events that we were doing. I I kind of say that it's like a sporty version, but I also don't like to use that terminology because sporty
Mm.
suggests that it's a race. We didn't use timing chips, but everything else was like a sporty. So mass start, everybody arrives in the morning, bacon and sausage sandwiches, coffee, sponsor features at the start. There were two routes available on the day: GPS, ride leaders, feed stations, goodie bag at the end, finishers medal. And then a lot of people kind of stayed on for food and drink after. So it was, if I was to describe it to somebody that didn't know what it was, I would say it's a bit like a sporty version of what we do. And we had just under 100 people there in the Cotswolds. So we thought, right, well, we'll do that again. So we're doing it at the end of September this year at the same place, Adam Henson's Cotswold Farm Park. This time we're going to try and get 150 people there. And then we thought, right, well, we'll do one in the north as well. So we've actually got the big business bike ride north happening at the end of June from Foxhouse between sort of Sheffield and Hathersage. That one we're aiming for 100 people because I think there's a bigger pool of people down south. But we've actually got Adam Blythe coming to that one because we're supported by Youthful on the day, and he's one of their ambassadors. So having people like that come to our events, I think again it kind of shows the progress that we've made, and that people starting to take note. It gives us a bit of a bit of clout, a bit of authority. So yeah, hopefully we can sell out both of those events. They're both going well so far, and kick on from there.
So in addition to those big business rides that we've got this year, you also do corporate rides, is that right?
Yeah, so as a natural byproduct of, I guess, the experience and insurances and equipment that we have, we also offer our services for corporate cycling events. So with the Tullio events, we run them, and it's the Tullio community or kind of guests that buy a ticket and come along. Whereas with a corporate cycling event, we have a paying customer that wants to take out their staff, their customers, clients, whatever it is, and we just provide the event. So that's, ride leading on the day, planning a route, risk assessing it, bringing the event equipment, finding the start location, sorting out food and drinks, that sort of stuff. And yeah, we'll go and run it on the day, so they don't have to worry about, actually doing all of that, because most people don't have the know-how or the insurance. But the beauty of Tullio is there's a few competitors in the market that do that and do it well. But with a corporate cycling event, the corporate has to bring the people with them. We just put the event on. But with Tullio, I actually have the opportunity to put the event out to the Tullio network if they want to bump it up with relevant riders. So, for example, if a construction company approaches me and wants to put on a ride, and they get 20 people there, but they say, Dom, we want an extra 10 there that are relevant to our industry. Can you find them? That's something with the network that we've built that we can potentially facilitate, and is another member benefit where you might be able to attend other companies' corporate rides, which could lead to anything, a job or a collaboration, a project, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's something that we're looking to ramp up this year. I don't tend to go out and sell it. It's just companies that approach us inbound or referrals from the network. But yeah, that's something that I've certainly enjoyed doing in the past. I'd like to do a lot more of.
That's interesting. It's an interesting other angle to this, and a benefit that comes out of the networking group. It's very good. And then I suppose another thing that's kind of spun out of Tullio has been our annual Mallorca trips that have come out, and we've got one coming up in May. So, but they've been a very different way of being able to work with people. Get to know them business-wise, but also actually what's happening in their industries as well. I think that has been equally as insightful as actually doing business with each other. But it's also a bit more of a social side of the group, isn't it?
Yeah, I think again, going back to that friend aspect, it doesn't feel like you're going away on like a business networking event, does it? It feels like you're going away with a group of cycling mates, and you kind of get to know people in in a social setting. They're not, they don't feel like they're coming to an event, and you get them I guess in their comfort zone. So I feel like the relationships that you build out there are much stronger than obviously just going to an event that lasts a few hours over here. So yeah, going really well. That we've kind of had more people each year for that. I think there's a group of 20 of us going this year. So yeah, it's something that I always look forward to, and seems to go down really well.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to note is actually as Tullio has grown now, the base has grown, but also glad to say um, it's not just male orientated. We've
Mm.
got both male and female riders that come, and yeah, there's just some great conversations and great discussions that happen as a result. Really good insights. I think that's been particularly good to see as I've
Yeah.
observed the growth of the group over the last few years. So I think that's a positive thing. But I think also, more um, more insight, more people joining and getting involved from all industries has it really is quite good to see, I think.
Yeah, I'd just like to focus on your point about getting more women involved there as well, because that was something that certainly in the early days we really struggled with.
Mm.
I do feel like we're swimming in a small pond, but that's constantly getting bigger because there's obviously a historical balance that's still, massively nowhere near level of women in senior or leadership positions, and then how many of them then cycle. So it's a smaller market, but it's certainly one that's growing. And in the early days, I think that the women that did come tended to be the riders like Gemma,
Mm.
triathletes, iron ladies,
Mm.
iron competitors that feel comfortable riding at whatever pace. Where actually it's not a boys' club, it's not a race. We're not just shooting off. And anybody that comes, we have a group that will suit them and that will look after them. So yeah, recently we've had a lot more women join, and we've got a couple of women ride captains already. I'm speaking to some more, and I think it's one of those things like chicken and egg. When people start to see more and more women at our events, having a good time, feeling included, getting valuable relationships from it, I think that more and more will start to come because they'll see it as a safe space. And like I said, it's not just some male dominated business environment where people are shooting around on bikes as fast as they can.
No, it's completely the opposite, actually. I'm very grateful of that because I very much enjoy the social cafe stop riding of that we do. So yeah, I very much enjoy that because it is about combining cycling and business together. That is the aim of it. They're not training rides. They're not races. They are meant for that ability to enjoy some time in a different environment, in a non-pressured environment that actually leads to natural engagements
Yeah,
in terms of sales. Is I I've been a beneficiary of the business directory. When I'm thinking of things I need this particular service or whatever, it's been great to be oh well, I can have a search through here, but actually I know this person as a result, and if they can't help me directly, 9 times out of 10 they've been able to recommend somebody that can. um
yeah. All the group as a whole. I think that's the
yeah.
great thing about the WhatsApp is asking people for recommendations, and it's interesting to see that people always seem to want to use someone from within the group if there's someone there,
Yeah.
without even really knowing them first if they've not met them, because there is that level of trust because we're cyclists. And then if there doesn't happen to be anybody that's within Tullio, then they kind of take recommendations from the Tullio network as to who might be the best person to use. So, but yeah, hopefully we'll have somebody that covers everything eventually. So
Yeah, very good.
you don't have to look any further.
Well, Dom, yeah, appreciate you coming on. I'm glad we got to do this because I wanted to do this just because the whole premise of the podcast is about cycling and technology and business, and oftentimes the two are independent, they're separate from each
Yeah,
other. But this was one where we could actually bring those two topics together, cycling and the business community together. Yeah, and actually there is value in that, and it's been good to see, and I've been a beneficiary of it, and yeah, long may it continue. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So yeah, it was nice to chat.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Dom. Take care. All the best for the upcoming regional ride, or the local rides that kick off. They kick off this month, don't they? I think some have already kicked off.
Some have already started. Some hardy people rode all the way through winter. The Richmond Park gang did. I think you went to gravel and people came down to your rides. That theirs weren't continuing. But yeah, people have either already started or they're starting in May. So yeah, watch out for those.
Yeah, I mean the New Forest one we're going to be doing on the 4th Friday of every month. I think others are doing first Friday.
Yeah.
And I think they're being staggered a little bit so that people get one of the pieces of feedback was we want to go and visit other ones.
That's it. Yeah. So last year they're all first Friday of the month, just because I thought if people know where they are. But as you say, people piped up and said, well, actually, I want to be able to go to different ones. So yeah, we've tried to match local regions where one's first Friday, one's second Thursday. So they tend to be at the end of the week, but at different times in the month.
Yeah. And people can find out about those on the Tullio website. Yeah, is that right?
Yeah,
there's an
even if you're not a member.
Sorry.
Even if you're not a member, if you are a member, you get access to all of this information at your fingertips through the website and the various supporting apps that we use. If you're not a member, you can come and try a ride for free first. If you're not sure about joining straight away, so head to the website www.Tullio.cc. Click on rides. There's a map there that you can zoom in on. Find your closest ride, I guess. Click on there. There's a link to who the ride captain is, where they tend to start from, what day of the month it is, and then you can be added to the communications for that particular ride. So we do plan to make everything much more visible. We'd like to move to an app called Link My Ride in the coming months, which will, the information will all be out there about our ride, so you can just turn up rather than having to be added to a communications list. But yeah, we're just waiting on that at the moment. So yeah, we just want to get as many people on Tullio rides as possible, so they can kind of buy into the idea of business and networking on a bike.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for your time, Dom. It's been great to speak to you. Good luck with all the events as they start now, and hopefully the weather keeps it good so that we get lots of people coming. And yeah, and I will see you on the next one very soon, and the shoulder will hold up, and I'll be back on the bike.
Yeah, I'll see you in Mallorca, won't I? So
that's the hopeful plan. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to chat.
Thanks, Dom. Much appreciated.
Cheers, Mark. Bye-bye.